Um, yeah, good to meet you, if I can say that
Yeah.
electronically, remotely.
Yes, the e-meet.
E-meet. Oh boy, I haven't attached the letter E to a word in a long time.
I know, right?
Yeah. Um, okay, I was just looking up I like to get a sense of where an actor's coming from, get a sense of their background, etc.
Yeah,
And your IMDb page does indicate that, and I know the IMDb isn't the most accurate thing, but
pretty open.
it does indicate that you've had acting gigs going back to the 90s, I think, but
Yeah,
very sparse until about
that's right.
3 years ago, maybe, and then suddenly it's like you're doing things. So what
That's
happened in
right.
the interim? What have you been doing
Oh
between those
yeah, it's
things?
been
Yeah.
a storied life. That's a great way to start. I studied theater at a local high school for the arts called Loxon. It's kind of revered nowadays, but and I had the full intention of coming out and being an actor, and those are those earliest credits on Clueless and that sort of thing. But I kind of quickly changed tack, and I've done everything in between from being in a kiddie rock band called Gwendolyn and the Good Time Gang. So I went into children's edutainment, and then I became a studio executive, and I was for 15 years, working with companies like Focus Features was my longest tenure, was there for like a little over 10 years, and doing marketing or not mar mostly distribution and post-production delivery. And then I got to a point in my life where I just knew what I was really here to do was to be an actor, a creative person, and I had a lot of story to tell. So I came back to it kind of later in life, but like with a lot more information and with that, kind of hit the ground running in a way that maybe I wouldn't have in my 20s, you know? And and then pretty quickly, The Promised Land came up as an opportunity, and
Yeah.
it flew off the page for me, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that.
Do you have any difficulty sort of wrapping your head around the idea of it, like doing like a mockumentary sitcom based on a Bible story?
You would think so in a way because I know that how like bop, that it kind of seems to bump up against each other. But like I said, when I read the actor breakdown for when we submit ourselves for auditions, it just flew off the page for me. I was like, this makes so much sense. I saw it, I think, and I think we speak amongst us in like the ensemble that was a similar. We shared that experience, and so you know. There's something to it, I think, some kismet, but because it felt so smart, you could tell in the presentation right from the get-go that it was handling it with truth and reverence and yet that the comedy in it, when it focuses on human folly is kind of baked in there. It's, if you lean into it. And so it felt intrinsic, and that was why it was so smart. And then when I read how, like, the specificity with which Miriam's gifts were being handled, I was just all in. I was like, oh yeah, and I really related in some ways, and yeah, it just made sense. It weirdly made sense to me.
Okay. Um, I'm curious as to how I mean, there isn't a lot about Miriam in the Bible. There isn't a
Yeah,
whole lot, it's
yeah, I know
the
that.
I, there are things that actually do provide a basis for the way your character is portrayed. I mean, Numbers 12 has the story
Mhm.
about Miriam and getting
So
into an
that,
argument with Moses because of his wife. And so that, I assume, feeds into the depiction of you and
absolutely.
Zipporah having this sort of like tension, friction, sort of a thing.
Yeah,
And so there is a basis for that in there. And but there's very little really about her in the Bible, whereas of course Moses and Aaron have a lot. There's a lot about them.
right.
So does that do you find that sometimes actors like to work with a lot of material? They like to have a lot to sort of ground the research in as they research the characters,
Mhm.
or maybe this is very freeing for you because there's just a lot of gaps you can fill. So what side of the coin do you come down there?
It's both. It really is both. As actors, we learn to, mine for the text first, for all the clues about our character. And indeed, that means pitching into the future, trying to find, things that are said about them, if that's available. And then take from, the beginning to like where they're going to end up and then extrapolate from there, like what could, fill in the blanks there. And with Miriam, though, it is sparse, but we know that she starts off, a child of deep faith, that she's a prophetess and that she's given, um, a connection with God right away, and so that really tells me a lot about her character. That she follows Moses as a baby up the river, that she brokers the his safety with the Egyptian princess, that she brings in her mother and keeps the family together. Her connection to family for that reason, and her she's savvy, she's scrupulous, like from a very young age. Like all of these things are like, like really you can extrapolate quite like, well, if this, then that, and then that how her intelligence and those scruples later on gets her in trouble, because, we do this. And this is that part of the story that's like so human, like where, like we're like the nouveau riche with a little information and we're like, oh, well, then I must be, so exalted and wait, how come I'm not getting mine, and that's, where that informs like the type of person she might be in the day to day, even when she's, towing the line, where she's got that. There's a sense of her that's very passionate, and and she brings that into her music, and she's an artist, and she takes herself very seriously. And so these are the things that sort of like are symptomatic of like somebody who might kind of fall off the rails a little bit later. So it's like that. We build it like that, and it's so fun and it's so creative. And Mitch is written like this so richly. I feel like it's a lot of the work indeed has been, you know, done for me. I find because, he writes with such like great complexity and keeps all the characters both charming and also really heightened and layered,
Okay. Like one of the big themes in, I almost said season two, but this is actually, it's been so long since the pilot episode came
I
out. I've
know
almost,
it feels like the season two practically, but no,
yeah,
yeah, deeply in
one of the big themes, yeah, one of the big themes this season is like Miriam's efforts to start the women's tent and to
yeah.
get the women organized. And you have that wonderful line in episode two where you say women used to be property, but now we're property with a voice.
Yes.
And, and um, I'm juxtaposing that with the fact that the Bible doesn't say a whole lot about Miriam, but Miriam is very much a central character of the show.
Yeah.
So is the show itself giving Miriam a voice that they maybe don't quite have in the text, and how do you see your character's role in that way?
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely her arc for the season, is that it's her searching for her voice imbued with this newfound agency and all of the possibility that comes from this pivot point, from being slaves in Egypt and then now, with guidance from God and her brother and brothers, how she steps into this leadership role. And because women are culturally and in this time period, um, not assumed that agency, and in fact, they are, considered property. It can be a really it's a part of the comedy, and it's really about how the culture is moving, I think, and the fact that we're highlighting these women with this reality, but rather than relegating it into this area that's the bit that like, oh, and whatever they say, it doesn't matter because they're property. That's not that. It's about like how they feel about it and how they're taking, and with Miriam in particular, how she's understanding and rising to the moment for herself, insofar as women can be defined as members of the Hebrew nations, and nation. and highlighting their importance and highlighting that they are people of God too, and we are all one in this. And yeah, so the writing is great because it handles this issue with a lot of complexity and in this way, even given the reality that the men in the camp see them as property and maybe less than, that they do have a voice and that it's often funny and smart and yeah, and loving and nurturing
I
and
mean,
caring.
what's that?
And loving and nurturing and caring and all
Oh, yeah,
the
caring,
good stuff.
caring. Okay.
Yeah.
What about, say, contrasting Miriam with Zipporah? Zipporah
Mm.
has a husband who she seems to get along with really well,
Yeah.
and Miriam does not have a husband. I mean, how does that affect sort of how Miriam sees herself in this community? Like Zipporah has the supportive husband that she's also supportive to. Miriam's a little more on her own,
Yeah.
and um, I don't know, like how do you? And
Yeah.
I think most of the women in that camp have
Yeah.
husbands. I mean, like she
That would
talks
have
to
been
Leah.
assumed.
Leah's got a
On her way.
mother-in-law, so
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
married and all that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, I don't know. How do you see that
I
aspect
see
of the
it as,
character?
yeah, no, it was one of my first questions was clarifying. I was like, Miriam's not married. She doesn't have children, right? Which is very interesting and it stands out. It's extraordinary for the time. And so therefore, again, like you extrapolate. And I think that because, it's intimated that, she's prophesied even, some stories say that, she prophesied Moses's birth, that he was, here's the coming of the person who was going to, uh, save our people and I think that from early on she swore a covenant to God and I think that in a way like kind of I think and this is like not like exactly defined as like oh she's a nun it's but I think
Right.
that that's what she in essence conceptually what like she is one with her relationship with God, and as a prophetess, I think she has this inner knowing that like she has a place, and again from a very young age, and so and the fact that she's not very good with people anyway. She kind of chooses. So she's very, I like it, it's all of this suits her sensibility as well.
Okay.
So she, uh, yeah, I think that she saves herself and with the for the message from God, and then later on to lead the people, rather than. But when we're talking about juxtaposing that with Zipporah, now we're also like having the newness of a sister. Which is different
Right.
for her too, she's had brothers, she's the oldest sibling too. So in like all of these ways, she's like been very separate, and now she's like bang crash into not only the leadership of these people, and but this partnership, you know, with somebody who's it's very much an odd coupling, and and it's her brother's wife, and so there's an assumption of like acceptance there too, and so she knows what she has to do, but she's like. Okay, I guess we're doing this. Let's go. Like her feeling about it is not,
Yeah. No.
she's uncomfortable with it, as in all things.
Right. No, the chemistry between you and Zipporah is great.
Yay.
And
Thank you.
um, Now, you got on board the Promised Land before you did The Chosen, but The
Yeah.
Chosen having already being an established show, your episodes of that came out first. So,
Yeah.
um, but uh, of course, and in The Chosen, you're playing a very different character. So, how is it sort of appearing in these two different Bible shows, playing such very different characters uh, right off the bat? And I don't know, have you got? I'm a big Bible movie fan, so I have to wonder, like, are there any sort of like Bible movie geeks out there, sort of like reacting to your very different performances in these
Oh, yeah. The people
related
out there.
shows?
the influencers and the fandom from both shows have been so supportive. And,
Yeah.
as an actor, you go and you take these opportunities um, because there's just they're really wonderful stories that are so well written and interpreted for the modern audience and so you do your best, you hope for the best, like you kind of put yourself in it and stay out of the results, as I say, um, or as is said. And so it's really amazing to get the feedback that what's being done and is well received, and that I'm helping to tell these important stories, and these stories that are so like important to people, and so yeah, with the Chosen, um
You're sort of the villain in that episode, sort of. Yeah.
yeah, well, and that was its own little journey of like, how do you humanize this and talk about not having a lot to go on in the text. There's even less said about Herodias, in a lot of ways, because we only see her through the lenses like of what she did in
Right.
or what how she led to John the Baptist's death, and so I really was able to what was really fun about that was that I got to pull from my theater background, and I like gave her a little bit of like, all right, what I know about like Lady Macbeth and like like women who are power hungry in a time where they're not center stage, but how do they use how do they manipulate the situation, and sort of like got to fill that up. But yeah, so and so you give it your all and you do your best with it, um and ultimately, I'm just really pleased that people received it so well. And like, yes, everybody online has been so supportive. It's been really a beautiful experience to be a part of both shows.
Okay. One last question, I think. I think we have time for one more, but
Yep.
you're has working on these shows. I noticed like I was watching the studio and I saw you in that scene there in that one episode, and I was like, oh wait,
Yeah.
that's Miriam. Um, and
Yay.
um, so Promised Land led to Chosen. Did either of those things like lead to the studio, or did they raise your profile at all? Or
In ways,
and I also have to ask, does your experience as a I don't know, is it fair to say that you were a studio executive or were you
yeah, yeah.
okay,
I had a director's title. Yeah.
right. And so did that also feed into
Oh yeah.
your approach to the studio?
Oh
Was that
yeah.
like a coming together of things?
Yes. Yes to all. And so honestly, like it really is a beautiful experience. Like I said, like, in the timeline of things, I feel like, my re-entry into this career, everything has led to everything. And it's just such an incredible example of that for me. And I'm always moved by it every day. So, in the way that the Promised Land and the Chosen, everything we do in this business leads to to more, and that is what maybe not in any direct way. I don't know. I'll never know, who's seen what, but that I'm able to establish myself as like a recurring role, or like as a series regular on something. It informs people about like, okay, she can hang on set with like these kind of this big punch up that is like the studio in terms of like, a very high like A-list cast, and which is its own thing. It speaks to like, experience and professionalism and that sort of thing. And yeah, and doing that show was everything that I do have done has really helped support my ability to help tell that story, because I told them, on set, like the writers, um, they that we would have these very same conversations in real life, like at this, the studio I worked at, that, everything was being handled as if we were saving lives, delivering films as if they were living organs for for transplant, and everything, the stakes were always so high and energized. So again, like when I read that script, I was like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. And uh and yes, it all, helped inform that experience. Yeah, it was there was another part of that. It was like and I just lost that thread, but all of this came together. Oh, yeah, that's right, because the studio is shot as a oneer, right? Everything is ongoing.
Yeah.
Which means that like there's just never a cut. Every scene is just like keeps going and you've got a steady cam. So the Promised Land, a lot of it is filmed that way too. We've got a steady cam, and so like it feels like theater. Also, because I studied theater, one of the things that um, I was informed on set when I got there, like, are you nervous? We're gonna do it all at once, like as a oneer, like, and I was like, oh, that's no, that sounds amazing. I was so excited because I was like, as somebody who's like a theater geek of your, like, that's all you want rather than like cutting and cutting, and having like, because often like the television filming can feel like disruptive to the actor. You're just doing them in like bites, but you just get to sing and like dance basically with like your ensemble, and like that's what we're here for a lot, and so in these ways, like it all fed into the experience really beautifully. But like the Promised Land, I was sort of like remarking to myself, oh my gosh, if I didn't have that experience, I, might have like been overwhelmed, too, because
The studio.
it's yeah, for the studio, exactly. Because it was, um, even though I studied theater, it had been a long time. You know, uh, so yeah, that's how it works.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's all good
Great.
things.
Yeah. It's been great talking to you, and I'm sure we
Why?
can say even more, but I think we've actually gone into overtime, and Monique
Oh
might have
yeah.
something to say about
It's
that.
such a pleasure though. It went by so fast. Thank you so much.
Okay.
No,
It's I love the show, and you're great in it. So
Thank you, Peter.
was keen to talk to you when I heard this came up. So
Yeah, that means the world. Thank you so much, Peter, and likewise.